Giant fans that have supported us for more than 30 years at Giant Stadium, for all those years in Yankee Stadium, and some of you even back to the Polo Grounds. This is for you. This is for you.
Listen to me. Okay, the rest of your life, man, nobody could ever tell you that you couldn't do it, because you did.
With the second pick in the 2018 NFL Draft, the New York Giants select Saquon Barkley, running back, Penn State.
Welcome to another edition of the Giants Guys. I'm John Fennelly. Today we talk to our old friend, Mr. Craig Santucci of NYGiantsRush.com. Craig and I will talk about Dave Gettleman, the Giants roster, Olivier Vernon, and we'll also give you our choices for the Giants Mount Rushmore. So stay tuned for about 45 minutes of entertaining and informative New York Giants football talk. Craig, how are you tonight?
I'm good, John. I'm good. I'm ready to talk some Giants football.
Yeah, it's been a very interesting off season for the Giants. I know we went through a few things the last time we spoke, but OTAs are going to be over this week, and then we're going to go into minicamp, mandatory minicamp next week, and everybody should be there, as far as I know.
I agree. I didn't see anything about anyone potentially, looking for a day off.
Well, if you don't show up to the mandatory sessions, you get fined unless you get an excuse. Sometimes guys are excused, but I don't see that happening here. I think Beckham will be there. Snacks will be there. Eli Apple is in tow. He's actually completely bought in, which is good. Everybody else, OV has been up here, and, we're going to get to him in a few minutes. But everybody who is always on the fringe is ready to participate.
Yeah, what we used to say, anybody who was a Shockey or a Plaxico.
Oh boy. Yeah, well, with this new regime coming in, and I don't want to dwell on the fact that Dave Gettleman announced today that he'll be treated for lymphoma. That kind of is going to keep him out of work. I mean, of course, the guy's very sick. That's nothing to mess around with. Treatable, depending on the stage that it's at. We just hope he's okay.
Yeah, without a doubt. That's nothing to even remotely say, what about the Giants? He's talking about the poor guy's life.
Yeah, I mean, we can't even think about that. But, they brought in a guy the other day, Kantz, they brought him in for the draft to be a consultant, and just to beef up their player personnel team. I don't know if that was in anticipation of Gettleman not being around or whatever, but I didn't realize that Kevin Abrams, the assistant GM, has been there 16 years already.
I didn't know it was 16 years, but I kind of, when the Reese thing went, belly up, for the better, of course, and Abrams didn't get the gig, I kind of, I did a little bit of background on him, for the website for NY Giants Rush, and I gotta tell you, I still doesn't compute that he's been there that long, because my first reaction is, well, why isn't he getting the gig? So part of me makes me feel like bringing Gettleman in, the Giants might have known for the last, let's say, I don't know, a month or two that Gettleman, had some health issues, but they were going to kind of show Abrams how to get this done, because evidently Reese didn't help the guy at all. Because if Reese had helped him at all learn the ropes, they would have passed the baton to him right away, but they didn't. So evidently, to me, bringing Gettleman in was like, it was his gig. But now that this new health issue has sprung up, I think, Abrams definitely got a lot of hands-on experience over the last 5-6 months.
Yeah, I mean, on the personnel side, he was always a cap. He was like the cap guy they had. He was their cap guy for a while, and I don't know when it comes to personnel where he stands, how involved he was. Because Mark Ross usually did the college piece.
Yep.
And you had Gettleman, you had Ken Sternfeld, who's still there doing the pro personnel piece for a long time. So, I guess he's going to stand in as GM interim if Gettleman can't do the job. He says he's going to try, but if you're going through treatments, I know a lot of people who have gone through that, and they're just not up to coming to work some days. So
yeah,
it's difficult.
A lot of those treatments take a beating on you.
Yeah, so I had an uncle who went through all of those things, and he just one day up, the next day or two down, and it's really hard on him. But we're with him all the way. Hope he gets better and gets through this.
And you mentioned about those 16 years. I mean, Abrams, he's been there under Ernie Accorsi and Jerry Reese, so he should have a pretty good handle on what needs to be done.
Yeah, I mean, they have a few guys there. I mean, ultimately any big ticket item goes up to John Mara. So
yeah,
that's the good part about the Giants. There's checks and balances in place when it comes to personnel. I mean, they're not going to be making any moves anyway, and we'll talk about the salary cap too. They painted themselves in a little bit of a corner when it comes to that, but they did shed themselves for the future with the JPP trade. That was a really ridiculous. It was a giveaway, in my opinion. He didn't deserve that money.
Yeah, I think it was $60 million he signed for. Does that sound right?
Yep, and there was a lot of front-loaded guarantees, of course, that the Giants are still paying. And next year they'll be rid of it. So,
it's interesting too because again, in hindsight, it's 2020, but I was a very big DRC fan, just because I liked the way he played. He was a great open field tackler. I know he had a couple bumps in the road, last year, but I liked the guy. And if things were a little bit different from a money standpoint, like I said, if JPP didn't get that big lump sum of money, maybe there would be some additional money to do something else, and a guy like DRC wouldn't have to get cut, because getting rid of DRC is basically freeing up cash. So, if JPP didn't sign for 60 and he signed for 45 or 40, or maybe it wasn't front loaded, maybe DRC would still be on his team.
Yeah, I think there's other reasons why he's probably not there. I mean, last year the secondary just went into this mini mutiny, and it was bad. So you had Jenkins upset, you had Apple upset the whole year. Those guys are back in the fold, and DRC also. So they all took turns getting suspended or fined or whatever it was.
And he doesn't have a job.
Yeah, nobody signed him. That's kind of odd. The Giants are taking some kind of cap hit. I don't know the exact figure, but they freed up some cash, and they need it. And we'll go through that a little bit. But they have a lot of bodies in the secondary. I don't know how much actual talent and depth they have. They have William Gay playing in the slot. He's not a bad player, but they're going to need help there. They're going to need some help. So that's what training camp is for, to sort all of that out.
Yeah, and Gay's no spring chicken. So the guy's been around a little while, but I have to and we've always had this situation every year. Like there's always a Tremaine McBride, or there's a guy Harris. There's always a guy that you don't think is going to make the team, and then he makes it, and then he shows a little surprise, and he fills in real nice. So, but it's the main guys that we had problems with like through the years. So finally, when you get a guy like Jenkins and you get a guy like DRC and Apple, you think everything's going to come together, but it just didn't work out that way. So this year you've got some cohesiveness between Collins and Apple and Jenkins. You really hope you can find that slot that can step in and make a difference. The guy from was it Cockrell?
Yeah.
I was surprised they didn't
Ross
keep
Cockle.
him either. But I was surprised that again, is Gay better than him? I don't know, but it'll be interesting who makes that. That's who makes the team as that starting slot corner.
Yeah, they have a bunch of not walk-ons, undrafted free agents coming in. This kid Haley from Penn State, Aaron Davis from Georgia. They have some guys who they're really high on in the secondary, and they have a couple other guys that have been making waves. So we'll see.
Well, if we can get pressure on the quarterback, maybe they won't have to cover for so long.
Yes.
Since we don't get a whole lot of pressure on the quarterback, it does expose some of our defensive backs.
All right, so let's talk about that. You want to talk about Olivier Vernon, and I don't know what it is you have against the guy, but except for the lack of sack production, I think he's okay. But you can tell me what you think.
I just have a high standard for the position of defensive end. Like, we've seen great defensive line play between your Taylor was an outside linebacker. So, but the Strahans and the Ossies and the Tucks and the Kiwanukas and, I like a guy who's not one dimensional. And I don't like, that this specific individual we brought in was never that great to start with. I mean, the guy was playing on the other side of, Cameron Wake, who was the star in Miami. And he's had one season of 11 and a half sacks. So it wasn't like, now I understand Jerry Reese was desperate trying to save his job and everything. So he needed to make a big splash in free agency. But I just don't see it out of this guy. I watch him from the lower bowl, and he's probably, at times, tired because, evidently, they feel that they don't have any depth at the position. So at the time, JPP and Vernon were playing whatever, 95, 96% of the snaps. Or is that because, they're playing that much because they're trying to get these guys to make plays? Like you keep your great players in the game because your great players are supposed to make plays. So, there's a yin and a yang. And this guy, to me, doesn't show me anything. I mean, first of all, you're talking about $85 million, with 50 something million guaranteed. I just don't see it. I mean, he plays the run okay. I don't think he gives that extra effort. He doesn't come down the line and make a tackle, on the other side of the line. He's one-dimensional with his sacks. And John, I got to tell you, I don't know if you had a chance to read the article, that I wrote for NY Giants Rush, but the biggest thing is always now about analytics, metrics, and these companies have gone out of their way to make a marginal player better than he is. I mean, when you're a defensive end, and correct me if I'm wrong, and jump in here anytime you want, but sacks is first, quarterback hits is second, forced fumbles is third, fumble recovers is fourth, tackles maybe is fifth, or maybe tackles is third. But that's your job. And to tell me pressures counts is just plain garbage in my world. All I need to do is step across the line of scrimmage and it's considered a pressure. I mean, that's my job. And my job is to sack the quarterback, to hit the quarterback, force a fumble, and so forth. And I just don't see it out of this guy. I know, everybody wants to like him. I want to like him too, but he's never carried a game on his back. I mean, come on. How many times did we see Strahan just come in, throw John Runyon, off to the side with a great, hip toss and hit McNabb numerous times when it was needed. When's the last time you seen OV put his hand in the dirt, strap it on, blow past the tackle, and make a game-changing play?
Well, let's stop right there. Okay, right now, he's not playing with his hand in the dirt, and he probably won't be.
Agreed.
Okay, last year, let me tell you what happened to him last year. Okay, He missed 4 games in the middle of the season with a high ankle sprain, right?
Yep.
Came back, had 3.5 sacks in the last 3 games. But, in 2016, he took 93% of the defensive snaps as a DE. That's too many. You're supposed to be a rotational player as a DE. You're supposed to take 70%, 75%. JPP was doing the same on the other side. That's the thing. That's the problem I had. They were always on the same sides. No, They never swapped them. They never moved anybody around. If you planned for the Giants, you game planned for the Giants, you came out, you knew you were going to block Vernon, he was there every play. Instead of moving JPP over and moving him to flip-flopping him, they wouldn't do that. So they were too predictable. This year in the 3-4, the Giants will have the really big bodies up front, and then the next to big bodies behind them. So, you've got 7 big boys in the box now.
Correct.
You know what I'm saying? So this is going to be a better defense. I think Vernon is acclimating, from what I've been told. I haven't been out there yet, at that edge position. I think he's at the Sam position.
Can he drop into coverage?
Well, that's the thing. That's what they're learning how to do now. He's agile enough to do it.
He is, but I guess, yes, he's agile enough. But will he want to? Will he do it? There's just something about his game that just never strikes me as this dominant playmaker. Now, maybe standing up in a 2-point stance, will give him that burst or that set in the edge, and I'm hopeful that he does. He doesn't strike me as this overly passionate guy, this guy that wants to win at all cost, this guy that is determined to get to the quarterback. To me, he's like, hey, let's swap jerseys after the game. I'm going to go sit on the beach and have a drink.
That's all changing over there. The culture is completely changing now.
Okay.
Everybody is, on their best behavior, watching their P's and Q's. They're all buying into James Betcher's defense. All right. Everybody wants to be there. They're embracing their roles. I haven't heard a gripe out of anyone. Anybody. Everyone says Snacks was not happy or whatever. He came right in and took everybody, under his wing. All these young defensive tackles and all these guys on the line.
Yep.
So what you have at linebacker now, you have Vernon, you have Ogletree, you have Goodson, who is very excited because Ogletree and Goodson are going to get to rush the passer from the middle of the field. That's what they really want to do. And Betcher does that. He dials up these blitzes. And then, of course, on the other side, you have Keenan Martin, who knows the defense from being with the Cardinals and Betcher.
Yep. And then the
Kareem
kid who got
Martin. I'm sorry, not Keenan Martin. And then you have guys like Kerry Wynn.
And don't forget about the kid who got suspended.
Morrow, Avery Moss, and another guy who everyone seems to be writing good things about. And
Okwara?
Yes, Romeo Okwara.
I liked him. He was a Notre Dame boy, if I remember.
Yes, and in the middle, they picked up this guy, A.J. Francis, from the Redskins. They like him. Of course, they'll have Tomlinson back, Snacks, Robert Thomas. They got the 2 rookies, Hill and McIntosh. So they have a lot of people.
No doubt. I listen, and I don't want you to think...
And they're going to rotate, believe me. They're going to be fresh in the fourth quarter.
Which is good, because like I said, 93, 92% of the snaps is a lot. All I just want to see the guy do is make a play. Because I've got, if you think about all the linebackers, all the defensive ends that the Giants have had, there's just games where they dominate or they make a play where you're like, thank God somebody wants to play today. And I don't ever get that. And listen, when JPP was healthy, he wanted to make that play. And then, of course, between the back and the hand, he wasn't that player anymore. Like Vernon has all the tools. I just don't know if between the ears he wants it. So I'm willing to be wrong. I said before,
here's the thing. Even though he's getting paid a lot of money, they will limit his snaps if he's not playing well.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of this defense. It's strength in numbers. one guy goes down or one guy's not playing well, they've got another guy right there.
Yeah, rotation is going to be important.
Yeah, so that wasn't happening the last couple of years, mainly because of injuries. And, the thing is that they wanted to put all their money out on the field, and these guys weren't producing.
And there's no depth. So it wasn't like, if you remember, like a guy I used to love, Dave Tollefson, you remember him?
Sure.
Guy had a great motor. So when Tuck came out, you put Tollefson in there, that guy was going to go and go and go. Like, so that, and then there was a Kiwanuka could go from defensive end to linebacker and back to defensive end. And, so you had some depth. So this will be interesting to see the depth and the rotation and who's making it happen. And listen, I'm all for OV being the guy. I don't want to hear people tell me that he's great getting pressures. Pressures to me is garbage. I mean, you don't get paid unless you finish. You should be a finisher. I don't want to hear, okay, you were in the vicinity of the QB. That doesn't win you games. That doesn't get you off the field on third down. So I'm all for it. I just want to see it because the guy is getting paid a lot of money to be a top-notch defensive end now / linebacker. I just want to see it. That's all I want to do is see it.
And I think you will. The defense has completely changed. The attitude, the strategy. Pat Shurmur is not just an offensive coach. He's a guy that coaches the whole team. He's like he said the other day, he's been around a lot of defensive minds. His uncle was Fritz Shurmur.
Yeah, sure.
Who was a very innovative and famous defensive coach and coordinator in this league for many years.
Yep.
He's worked with Mike Zimmer. He's worked with Jim Johnson in Philly. He's worked with Nick Saban. He played under George Perlis, even though he was an offensive player. George Perlis was, if everybody remembers him, he was the head coach at Michigan State. Then he went to coach under Chuck Noll and the Steelers, won 4 Super Bowls, and then went back to Michigan State. So the guy has been around defensive coaches, so he understands that side of the ball and how important it is, and that's why he hired James Bettcher.
I love the new DC. I was a big Spags guy. Yeah, I was a big Spags guy, but I think that this guy has got an attack style that he wants to bring to a big market like New York, and I think they're going to embrace it. And bringing in Ogletree is just, I mean, that might have been like the most underrated move of the offseason.
Yeah, I mean that's a big signing for them. I can't stress how under the radar that is, and people will realize that as the season goes on.
Oh yeah, he's going to hit a lot of people in the mouth, and they're going to be like, "Whoa, I didn't know this guy was that good." Because before the Rams made their miraculous turnaround from worst to first, this guy was knocking heads with a lot of people. And so I think people are going to be pleasantly surprised when they see this guy. Like, he reminds me of a young John Beeson, but a little taller. And I think that people are really going to like the explosion he brings from the inside.
Yes. Ogletree is, I think that was a big trade for the Giants. People say, oh, you gave up a draft pick. So what? A draft pick that probably wouldn't have made the team.
Yeah, that's a good point.
He was an odd man out, and I don't know how he could be an odd man out in anybody's defense, but apparently he was an odd man out in L.A., and they traded him. He was on the market. We'll take him.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I don't want to jinx the guy, but like you play good ball in New York, they'll make you a hero. You know what I mean? You could listen. I loved Antonio Pierce. AP had a handful of good seasons at the end. He was fighting through some injuries, but Ogletree, and by the way, and if you're blitzing Ogletree from the inside and Goodson from the inside, that should give a lot of favorable matchups to OV on the outside.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I mean, we haven't seen it in action yet. It's all chess right now. It's all on the chalkboard. And, when they're out there, the defense really doesn't get a chance to do much because they're not in pads. They're playing touch football, and they're basically just, learning their spots.
Yeah, well,
that's about it. They're what we call in the theater blocking. standing on your spot on stage. Basically, that's what they're doing.
Well, yeah. Well, you could thank the CBA for that one.
Well, that's been a problem. And, every coach has had that issue with the CBA. So every team has it. So you have to deal with it. I mean, there's no way around it.
That's why you usually don't see, the pros really get in sync to the middle of September because they don't play preseason and they don't hit in camp.
Well, too many guys get hurt. We've already seen a couple of guys around the league get hurt already. You don't want to see anybody on this team get hurt. I mean, that's not what they're aiming for right now. So, mini camp will be like a walkthrough too. It'll be nothing, and then there'll be 6 weeks of off time, and then we'll be back in camp. And I think you can only have a handful of padded practices. I don't even remember how many, but I think it's 1 a week.
Yeah, they spend more time in the classroom than they do on the actual practice field.
So, you're not going to get a lot of hitting going on, and then you'll play that first preseason game, and everybody's going to be, cautious, naturally, unless you're looking for a roster spot. And then the second game, you'll do the same, and then, by that time, guys start to sit.
You ever read Michael Strahan's book by any chance?
No, I haven't.
So it's been a while since that book came out, but I remember what he said was when he was, I guess it was 2007, going into that Super Bowl year, and he was sitting on the beach and he was contemplating retiring. You remember that?
Yes. Yeah, I do.
You remember part of the book, it says, the reason why he was, the injuries and stuff were kind of mounting up, but, it was the fact that he didn't know if he had it in him to do the classroom work. He said they're in the classroom so much. Like when it came to football, there are a lot of walkthroughs, a lot of shorts and a lot of pad, no pads, just walking through, then back in the classroom, walk through, then back in the classroom. He said it was like a grind to be able to go, practice something for an hour, go in the classroom for 2 hours, come outside, practice it for an hour, go back inside for the classroom. I always remembered that about the book. It always stuck out to me about how much classroom work that they do. So you're right. There's not. And
that was a while ago.
Yeah, it must be worse now.
Yeah, it is. Believe me. And that's why when people say, "Oh, I want to go to practice. I want to go see camp," I'm like, you're not really going to see much. And you don't get to see the whole practice. First of all, there's a media portion of every practice, and then there's a private portion. The media doesn't get to see the whole thing.
Got it.
They send us either to lunch or they send us to the media room, and they go inside and they practice inside. It's closed, so you only get to see certain things. I mean, you get to see enough, but you don't get to see what they want you to see.
Yeah, they're keeping that close to the vest.
Especially when the games start, you're not going to get to see much. So let's talk about the salary cap. I mean, they still have 3 rookies to sign, and Barkley is one of them.
Yep.
According to whoever you believe in, they have 8.4 in cap space, 8.4 million. But that looks like the rookies, unless the rookies are included, which I didn't see, that they'll gobble that all up because Barkley is supposed to get close to $6 million cap space in his first year, and Hill and McIntosh,
Yep.
The other 2 unsigned, they take up the rest and maybe a little more. So the Giants cut a couple of guys yesterday to free up a little bit of room. Not a lot, but a little bit, and some roster space. They can't go into camp with more than 90. I think they have 86 now.
They got 21. I hope this isn't right, but I think it is. I'm doing a little research right here as we're talking. They have 21 million in dead money.
Right, and a lot of that's 15 is JPP.
Yeah, 15 for JPP, 2 mil for DRC, 1.6 for Dwayne Harris, 1 mil for Marshall, 1 mil for Wing. And then some pocket change for Owe Digazua and last year's 7th round draft pick, the lineman
Bobby Hart.
No, Adam
Oh, Bisnowadi. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Bisnowadi, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So people are talking about why don't they sign Michael Kendricks? Why don't they sign Des Bryant? And I'm like,
There's no money.
this isn't fantasy football.
Yeah.
People cost money. Des Bryant's going to cost you, I'm saying $7 or $8 million.
I could care less if he was free.
I know. I don't want him anyway, but the
Yeah.
thing is that just if you wanted to sign him, because he's a veteran, because he's Des Bryant, he's not going to play for less than that. He might take 5, but still, the Giants don't have 5 either.
There's
And
not
the same
enough
thing
balls
with
to go around.
Kendricks, who signed with Cleveland.
Yeah.
They don't have that kind of money. They still have to figure out what to do with Beckham.
The Kendrick thing is interesting, I guess, because I think what people are looking at, and I'm not really one to complain about it, but overall, if they were going to make a move, you could cut Jonathan Stewart and sign. It's too late, of course, and sign Kendricks because it's about the same. It was
Right.
I think Stewart was he's about $4 million, 3.9 and change, and I think Kendrick was like a 3.5 guy, a 3.4 guy.
Yeah, but they just signed Stewart and they want him. And they didn't care about that money because they want him. He's a red zone guy who also blocks.
Well,
he's a football player. That's why they want him.
Yeah, and he's probably going to be a good mentor for Barkley.
Exactly.
I only brought that up because, potentially, you sign him before you know that they're going to get Barkley, right? So you need a rock back there that's got his head screwed on right, and he's a football player, and he's good for the locker room, and you sign him, right? Which all seems pretty accurate. And maybe he can mentor, Gallman and get him going. But now he's never going to see the field, or his snaps just got cut by 60, 70, even 80%. Maybe while you want him and he blocks, like how many snaps is he going to get a game?
Well,
8, 10.
What did we just talk about? Depth.
Yeah, I understand. Yep.
And you need veterans. You need guys, and the offensive coordinator Mike Shula knows Stewart. Stewart knows his system. Coming from Carolina, he knows it.
Yep.
And you need a guy like that on the team. You just do. You just need a veteran to help out. I think he's going to play a decent role early on. And maybe, as the season goes on, he'll do less and less unless somebody gets hurt.
Yeah, correct.
But, we need guys like that.
And I only brought that up.
I think he cost him a little bit too much, if you ask me, but still.
Yeah, agreed. And I only brought it up because, that would be the only place that I could see cutting somebody and grabbing some money because right now, as you just alluded to a minute ago, there is no money. So, looking at the wire on who the Giants could sign is just basically you're wasting your own time. It's not going to happen. They're not signing anybody. There's no money left. Barkley needs his cash. And of course, you got to figure out how you're going to, I guess the $15 million that comes off goes to Beckham next year. But, right now, today, it being the 5th of June, they're not signing anybody. Like Des Bryant, they're not signing. They're just not signing anybody. There's no money left. This is your team.
Yeah. And, I'm fine with that.
Agreed.
I'm fine.
Agreed.
They made their moves. They had what I think is a pretty good draft. Guys coming in the door. They signed some free agents. There's a lot of moving parts. You have to let it shake out before you start signing other people anyway.
And again, there might be some guys that get cut during in camp or something. But right now, this is your team, and I think everyone should be pretty happy with the way it looks because the last 2 years were abysmal. From everything, from players being excited, fans being excited, from depth to just everything. Everyone should be really content about the direction the team's going.
Correct. Okay, we're running long on time, so let's get to the feature that we wanted to talk about.
Dun dun dun.
The Giants Mount Rushmore. Going back 92 or 3 years of Giants football. I'll let you go first. Who are the 4 faces you're going to chisel up on that mount?
So I'm going to start off with Phil Simms. To me, Phil Simms coming out of Morehead State in '79 brought back the winning ways of Giants football. Of course, had some struggles early on, but I'm starting off with Simms. I mean, he literally gave Giants fans what it was like to be the David to Goliath beating John Elway, right? So Simms to me will always have that spot in Giants lore. And then, of course, going in the Super Bowl, and if I'm not mistaken, went 25 or 27. Nobody ever talks about that.
22 or 25.
Oh, thank you. 22 25. That's near perfect in the biggest game of your career with the most pressure, and the guy played like it was a Sunday afternoon in his backyard. So I go Simms 1. Not necessarily meaning 1 as in just that's my first pick. My second pick is and this was a little harder for me, but I couldn't deny the winning ways is Eli Manning. So I'm going with both quarterbacks. One drafted in '79, one drafted in 2004. They're basically more of a modern day pick, but I mean you need them both. I think you need the two quarterbacks that brought this franchise their Super Bowls. Like I don't know how you could not have them when they bring you a Super Bowl. And both of them, Phil Simms was the okay. So those are not only Super Bowl winners; they're both Super Bowl MVPs. So my two offensive guys, one is Phil and one is Eli. To me, there's no denying either one of them. The next two is Michael Strahan, and I'm taking Strahan for numerous reasons. On being the guy who came from Texas Tech, comes out of nowhere, just like like a Phil Simms, but just carrying the team through good times and bad. They weren't always good, and he was there 13 seasons, John?
He was there longer than that, I think.
Was he longer than 13?
I think it was 4. I think it was 14, but let's not
Yeah.
split hairs.
So I'm putting Strahan up there for the day in and the day out grind, making plays when you really needed it to be done, going up against some of the best tackles in the game, and making it count. Was a guy you just knew would go out and get you a sack, make a tackle, and he played the run and the pass. I mean, that was the thing I loved about Strahan. He played the run and the pass, never took a play off. And then my final, of course, is what everybody knows is Lawrence Taylor. Reinvented the position, intimidation factor, never gave up on any play, did more things on a football field than I've ever seen anyone do before. My dad used to say all the time that he used to think he would be running on the side of his feet because he couldn't understand how he would bank that corner to get around that tackle and then blow up a fullback or jump over the fullback and still make a sack or a tackle on the other side of the field. So, we can go on and on about LT forever, but, in the, saving the time, I'm going 2 quarterbacks and two pass rushers. Now, you did mention to me about honorable mention. Do I bring one of those on or no?
You can bring them all on if you want.
I've got 2. I've got 2 honorable mentions. One is Harry Carson because he was the epitome of toughness. 10 Pro Bowls, Hall of Fame, from the good years to the bad years. I thought Harry Carson, set the tone of Giants football before there was a Lawrence Taylor. He's one of these guys that doesn't get a whole lot of accolades, because he's always outshined by Lawrence Taylor, but Harry Carson would be there. And of course the golden boy, Frank Gifford. I think Frank, epitomized what Giants football was back then. Guy played both ways. He played quarterback, he played running back. He got knocked out by Chuck Bednarik, and people thought he was dead. Came back and played more football. I mean, right. Just in that era, he did everything, and he was fast. He had good hands. He knew how to read defenses. And I can't tell you I watched him play, but I mean, I've watched plenty of film, plenty of movies. Everything about Frank is important to note because back then he was the Joe Namath of his era.
Correct.
Before there was Joe Namath, it was Frank. Frank was the golden boy of New York.
He was the guy that was getting all the endorsements. He was one of the first athletes to do that.
Correct.
Get those TV endorsements.
Yeah. So I only have two, and it'd be Harry and Frank, and I'm sure anybody can make an argument to put Frank on there. It's hard for me because they didn't have Super Bowls back then, and I'm kind of penalizing him for it. I know I probably shouldn't, but Frank was a lightning in a bottle for that era. Just a guy who could play a long time at multi positions, and it was durable. So that would be Sims and Eli, Strahan and LT, and then if somewhere on there I could slip in an honorable mention, it would be Harry and Frank.
Excellent. Let me give you my honorable mentions. Carson.
Going in reverse.
What's that? Yeah, I'll go in reverse. Yeah, I'll go in reverse. I'll save the suspense for everybody. Carson and Sims, Tiki Barber, Y.A. Tittle, Amani Toomer. Doesn't really belong on there, but these guys racked up a lot of numbers with the Giants. They played a lot of games.
You're going deep on the honorable mentions, my friend.
Yeah. And then we get to Sam Huff and Rosie Brown.
If I had two more, you definitely nailed that. If I had two more honorable mentions, I would have went Rosie and Huff too.
And of course, Andy Rubistelli. I mean, the Giants had a great team in the 50s and early 60s. Then the wilderness years come, and they had some good players. Brad Van Pelt was a great player.
Great player.
Dave Jennings was a great player as a punter. He was the NFC version of Ray Guy.
Yeah, without a doubt.
He played for the Giants. We would go to the games, and my father would say, "Here comes our best guy." Dave Jennings would come out and punt, and then he'd be like the highlight of the game. We couldn't wait to see him again. And sometimes the Giants would get a first down, and he'd be on the field, and then he'd come back off, and then 3 plays later he'd be back on the kick again. So it didn't matter.
No, you're right on there.
Dave Jennings makes my honorable mention.
Love it.
So I thought he was great. But let me give you my 4. Of course, Eli and Strahan, because they're both great players, let's face it. And they're great Giants. They've played the most games for the Giants. They've suited up. They put that uniform on the most times, 216 times. Okay, and LT, of course, is the greatest player maybe on any team. Forget about the Giants. When I saw him play, it was like, I couldn't believe what I was watching. I was like, this isn't real. This guy isn't doing this, is he?
Guy's a robot.
It's like watching Wayne Gretzky skate with the puck. Wayne Gretzky would take the puck and skate for 4 minutes with it. Nobody could touch him. Nobody would take it off him, and then he'd either score or pass it to somebody who would score. That's what Taylor did in football.
Yep, I used to think that way about Ricky Henderson. I'd be like, if Ricky Henderson gets on base, you might as well just let you know he's going to be on third before you blink. Like just nobody. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't fair. It was like it was a boy amongst men, and LT was just like. I mean, how many tackles did he just abuse?
All of them.
Exactly.
All of them. There's only a couple of tackles who really could give him fits.
Jacoby?
Well, he kind of schooled him, like Ron Heller from the Eagles used to shut him down a little bit. But then, Taylor would get the best of him. He'd get 2 sacks off him.
Yep.
And they'd be like, well, I got 2 sacks, two important sacks, too.
Yeah, and throw in the fact that he probably had 11 tackles too.
Yeah. And there was always a chipper on him if they could get a chipper on, if you could get one. I don't know who would chip. You couldn't put a running back in as a chipper because you just throw that guy down.
Or he just blow him up and run over him.
Yeah. If he didn't run over you, he ran around you. Yeah, he was just simply a wonder kind. I don't have any words for it.
Yeah, I've never seen a guy.
The highlights don't do him any good. You have to see it live. I saw it live.
Yep, it's very true. I tell people all the time, I'm like, you've actually never seen a player run by a tackle, run over or around a fullback, and go all the way down the line of scrimmage and make the tackle on the completely other sideline.
Yeah. They had one on tape, but there was a lot of them where they don't have a highlight reel running. You see all the highlights, but there was a lot more to him than that.
Oh,
he did that regularly.
Yep.
So he's my third guy, and Gifford is the fourth guy because what we talked about. Somebody from that Giants team in the 50s and 60s has to be on there because, those were legendary teams. And Gifford was basically the face of those teams. He was the most famous guy. And to not put him on the Giants, and he's always been close to the Giants, even after his career. I got to interview him once, which was really cool. And he was a very nice guy. And he wasn't as big as I thought he would be. Actually, he wasn't big at all.
No, not a big one.
And he was very well spoken, very intelligent. We knew that from watching him on TV and so forth. And, he answered all the questions that you asked him. He loved to talk about football. He loved Vince Lombardi. Sure. And I was on one of these shows the other day, and we were talking about Vince, and I forgot about Lombardi. I called him Vince. He called him Vince. The Landry and Lombardi era so much where they both played Gifford. Gifford played for both of them. He played defense, too.
Yeah, that's what always amazed me about his tenure with the Giants was extremely long, and he played both ways.
Yeah, and he loved Lombardi, and because that's where I interviewed him on the red carpet of the play Lombardi.
Oh, that's cool.
So we were on the red carpet, and he came down, and I interviewed a whole bunch of people that day, and I eventually got in to see the play also, which was very good, by the way. If you ever get to see it, Dan Lauria and Judith Light. Good cast. Great story, and it was just very entertaining. But Gifford had already seen the play, and he came back to see it again.
Oh, okay.
So he had told me, he says, I've been here already. I said, okay. Did you like it? He said, I loved it. He says, Dan Lauria, I think he's Vince. He's just like him. But with Lombardi, he left, and the Giants had a chance to get him back. And Wellington Mara said, well, we're not that kind of a franchise. We're not going to take him back. He has a contract, and we're going to let him honor it. Bad move.
Yeah, hello.
Yeah,
and
real bad move.
In fact, I'll even go as far as to say this. Because he didn't come back when he went to the Packers, he took Tennell with him.
Well, that's just one instance.
Well,
he took himself. Yeah. Well, that was the main thing. The Giants ended up losing Landry to the new Dallas team in 1960, the expansion team, and they were looking for a coach then, and they hired Allie Sherman, and Sherman won the first couple of years. But then the team started getting old. He started trading everybody away. Then they started trading draft picks away for veterans. They were giving the whole franchise away, and by the end of the decade, it was barren. There was nothing left. They were 2-12 every year. They had Norm Snead playing quarterback, who actually wasn't that bad. They also had Earl Morrall.
Yeah, but that was like the last redeeming moment because after that, it was all downhill.
Really downhill.
Next thing you know, you got Craig Morton.
Oh my God! I can't get into that. That's another show. All right, we've gone on long enough. Thank you for listening, Craig. We will catch up once again.
Yep, and if anyone's out there, if it hasn't checked out the site, nygiantsrush.com, check it out. A lot of good content up there, and we appreciate the support. And thanks, John, for having me on. And look forward to catching up again in the next week or two.
Yep, it's going to be a good long summer and hopefully a good winter and fall.
We can only hope that our right tackle decides to show up and play some football.
That's another show.
All right, John. Thanks for your time.
Good night, folks.